All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nurturing Neurodiversity. Before we start with anything, I'd like to make an acknowledgement. We acknowledge the traditional owners, the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. Hopefully I pronounced that close. On whose land we meet, share, and work. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from all nations of this land. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are the original storytellers of this place, and we recognize their significant contribution to the contemporary moving image. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Dylan Miklashek. I'm the studio manager for Gameloft Brisbane, the blue shirt. That's us, our little army that's walking around today. Woohoo! I am the moderator for today's panel. And we've got here our esteemed group from Brisbane. And why don't you guys introduce yourselves and say a little bit about, and then we'll jump in.
Go first, Brad.
All right, I'll start up. All right, my name is Bradley. I'm a junior game designer at Gameloft Brisbane, but I'm also the developer of an Aspilife and the current in development Aspilife Beginnings. So yeah, that's who I am.
I'm Catherine Booth. I'm a mid-level game designer at Gameloft in Brisbane.
I'm Cass. I'm the game community manager here at Gameloft Brisbane. I'm the token extrovert. How you doing?
Awesome. All right. So, should have moved to this slide before.
There you go.
That's what we look like, in case you didn't know. All right. So we're going to try and do a bit of a participation element of this panel. So if you can either, I don't think you can scan that QR code from there. You can give it a go. Or just slido.com. It'll allow you to put in some responses to questions and things like that we've got got set up. So has everybody got that?
There'll be something on each of the slides, so don't panic if you miss out here.
All right, cool. Everybody, yes. One more picture. Yes. Click. All right. Okay. So, the icebreaker. So, if you've got that up, what is your favorite game? Answer that into the Slido.com app, right?
It's going.
So the question comes up on there.
Yeah.
Hey, look at those.
There we go. Look, it's working, people.
Oh, Stardew Valley, good choice.
Oh, God.
I can see something happening here.
Nintendo 64 generation rise up, please.
And Chrono Trigger.
Sims rise up.
Does it mean that the bigger it is, the more people?
More people.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a very high potential in Ocarina of Time.
Oh, that's so cool.
Fantastic.
Monkey Island, perfect, wonderful, love that.
Diablo 2, nice.
Still 3 people typing, 2 people typing, 1 person typing.
Oh no, come on
2
Ocarina of
We're at
Time.
67.
Oh, Mass Effect. Oh yeah, Oregon Trail, baby. Oh, that in there. No one was paid to vote for that. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you so
Cool.
much.
That's awesome. What a cool little icebreaker
Alrighty.
that is. All right. So over to the panel. What does this mean?
We can go in our
Go in a direction a little. Okay, I'll go straight. So what does neurodivergency mean to me? I think for myself, so being neurodivergent, so I was diagnosed at the age of 3 with autism. At the time, Asperger's, but that diagnosis has moved to the side. So D1 for autistic spectrum, as well as ADHD. To me, I think the term neurodivergent and the neurodivergent community is a place for people to get understanding of themselves. Because it's quite difficult, because a lot of people, you're thinking about, why am I like this? And there comes a point where once you understand a diagnosis, you can reach out and you ask people, and you can gain a greater insight to yourself and how your traits affect you, as well as help move you forward in certain areas of your profession and your general life, really. So yeah, that's my main thoughts on it.
Yeah. So I have ADHD. I was only diagnosed 2 years ago, so the concept of neurodivergence, and not so much the concept, but the community that it represents, helped me find how that label kind of applies to me and how it represents not just the challenges, but also the unique perspectives that we have on how we approach our lives in general, I guess, yeah.
Being neurodivergent, I've only been diagnosed in the past year. And to me, it really means you are not alone and there are answers and you are valid. So I had a lot of behaviours that, hands up if you ever had a school report card that said, lovely student, distracted a lot. And they just said, anxiety and that's it. And it wasn't until my 30s did they say, oh yeah, no, she's textbook.
Yeah.
So to me, it means you are not alone. And I was able to find a wonderful community through it.
Awesome. All right, so another audience participation.
We were curious about how it represents in the games industry. So,
and no shame for self-diagnosis. We find it's really hard to get diagnosed these days, and it's really not that accessible. So no shame there.
yeah, we wanted to kind of make a space to point out that, even if you don't officially have the label, I guess, from whatever
What didn't you guys say?
specialist you have.
Because through this process, I've learned tons, which is awesome, about neurodivergence. And you said, what was the cost of getting diagnosed? Did
It
you have
cost me $5,000
to get
to
diagnosed?
get diagnosed.
Worse than that, though, is obviously the cost is there, but I read a statistic literally the other day from sort of another ADHD autism advocate, and she's in the UK, and she said that the wait list on the NHS is about 3 years long.
Yeah.
So it's not just
There
the
you go.
cost, it's the time that you have to wait
to get onto
get
it,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
This is an interesting thing that came up during the creation of our talk, was that because being diagnosed as 3 years old, my perspective is completely different from the other two panelists here, because I was a 3-year-old. I was just jumping around in sandcastles all day. I didn't have any concept of what that meant or affected me, but I've grown up always with that being at the forefront of my learning and my development. And so I never had a point where it's like, I've got to get diagnosed. The only reason I got diagnosed because I was pulling kids' hair as my way of saying hello in kindergarten. My parents are going, I think we need to have a look into that.
Yeah, it's definitely a very different journey for adult diagnosis, and specifically women in the diagnostic process. And part of that also is that we are, we commonly have ADHD. Brad also has autism, but there's actually a massive spectrum of other issues there as well. We've got OCD, bipolar. There's a whole spectrum of other things, dyslexia, dyscalculia, which I have as well, that are underpinning all of these things. So seeking out those answers can be very challenging.
None of these are really studied in women, so it is coming out to light now that women do get these. Like my sister just got diagnosed with OCD, but it did take her 2 years on the wait list to finally see a psychiatrist to sort through that.
So yeah, these results are super interesting.
Okay.
29%, amazing.
Yeah, but also, we've got the notcher on the self. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super cool. Thanks for everyone.
Thank you for answering that.
Yeah.
All right, so challenges. What kind of challenges have you guys experienced so far as neurodivergent game practitioners?
That's a really interesting one, because when you have these traits, and the traits themselves, they're not necessarily, they don't have a distinction of positive or negative. It depends on situations and the environment on how they're applied. So for myself, being autistic, a lot of it comes down to sensory and communication. I have visual and audio sensitivity, and that can often be quite distracting as well as stressful, especially in high audio environments where there's a lot of sound, there's a lot of noise. But then the way those challenges can be applied is dependent on the situation, I was saying. Because some places can be really noisy, but I can handle it because it's just white noise. But it can be really noisy. Let's say you're in an office, and one that really gets me, this is going to be really weird, is the opening of Coke cans. The ear piercing that sends my audio sensitivity. It sends my audio sensitivity just over the moon. And that's the thing, because it doesn't. When you say oversensitivity, it doesn't necessarily mean overly loud environments. It can be very particular things. Then obviously the communication aspect. This is something. Obviously, games is very. In any real industry is all based around networking, socializing. So, I mean, obviously, being diagnosed as 3 years old, as I've grown up, I've always been taught how to be a human and communicate. How does one interact? But it also, it always has been a very difficult thing to do that, because it's more, I kind of approach it almost as a puzzle. How do I need an icebreaker. I need to break in and join a conversation and then go through emotions. So doing that throughout high school, through uni, and obviously now in the industry itself, has always been its own particular challenge. And I think those are the main ones that really can affect and then challenge me throughout my time as currently in games.
For me, a big feature of my ADHD is time blindness. It's probably the most prominent feature. So I basically don't have a clock that I have no perspective on how long 10 minutes is and how long an hour is. So that can make it, previously, before my diagnosis, things on like time management and organisation were very, very challenging for me. I seem to have flipped that and come full circle with all of the like coping mechanisms and tools that I've had to learn to counteract that. So to an outside viewer, I'm like a hyper-organised person, but that's like a major challenge for me. I think another part that's difficult is probably I have a lot of anxiety that stems from the ADHD part. So like worrying about being late, worrying about forgetting things, fear of not knowing what I want to say, like all of those things. And it's actually the secondary issues from that are the biggest challenges for me to overcome. Yeah.
With ADHD in me, mine is intrusive thoughts. So my brain will not shut up. It's currently going 500 words per second, and I'm thinking about anything and everything but what I'm speaking about now. And I will sit there trying to time manage, and I just have these thoughts going in. I'm not focusing on the task at hand. I think of all these other things that could impact what I'm doing when actually they have no relation. My anxiety and my intrusive thoughts just suddenly decided they are. So I had to start utilizing tools to keep my brain on track, and so I can always refer back to it. And it's okay to bounce from thing to thing and not be hyper-focused, because that is a big thing. I will forget to eat. I will forget to do anything. I will hyper-focus on one task, and then you just got to, like, the way I coped was I have a time manager, and some people might not like it. Some people not like being micromanaged. I need that constant reminder and that open source of communication. So I do feel sorry for my lead sometimes.
He's like hyper accountability.
Yeah.
To lean into it.
Because her messenger will be like, ding, 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 it's me. My brain had an idea.
Yeah, I definitely feel that communication for me, like kind of backing myself on things that are instinctive, but also knowing that all things aren't just in my head and I should communicate them. I should communicate them. Yeah. There was something really good that you said that I've completely lost.
And I don't know what I said.
Actually, a challenge, yeah. So we talk about hyperfocus, and often it's kind of brought about as one of the strengths of neurodivergence. But it can be a real challenge to manage that. So making sure that we're still eating, we're still going up to drink water, we're actually taking healthy breaks, and kind of coming into what Ren and Tim were saying this morning about ambition, is that it can be destructive, and we have to be very mindful of how that burnout can affect us. Like, I work the best in my ability under really high pressure situations, but those high pressure situations have a toll that I have to kind of make up for later, and managing that is a challenge that we have to be aware of.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of this as a challenge for all three of you, is being misunderstood sometimes because of the trait, and people, it's sort of different to them and they don't understand it. Do you have that?
Oh man, so often. I mean, especially when it comes to the communication aspect. It's also much understood, but also misunderstanding people and what they're saying. Because there are many times where I'm trying to initiate conversations or talking to someone, and I say something that's completely off the beaten path, or it's not following along. Because communication is really difficult when you break it down. There is, you've got to ping pong back a good flow and making sure people engage, eye contact, body language, facial expressions, all these different things that lead to someone understanding you. And if you mess up one of those, it could either make things awkward, or they don't follow along with what you're saying, or you respond in a different way. And also, I have these weird things where I reflect, like I might have gone through a conversation and then later on I reflect like, did I say that correctly? Maybe they got the wrong idea. No, maybe I should have been more.
A lot of anxiety.
Yeah, it adds a lot of anxiety to these things. Thought it's also this thing where you're kind of used to it because you never have another experience outside of how you perceive things, and perspective adds a lot to the way you engage in your environment. And it really comes down just learning from that and then applying it again. Again, it's almost like a puzzle each time you talk to someone.
I do, since my diagnosis, I've come to understand that something that I really value and that I actively look for now is very clear expectations. So if my lead's saying to me, oh, let's do this, and at the end of the conversation, I'll say, is this what you want? When do you need it done by? Like those two big things are the most important things that I look for now, because I guess neurotypical people generally don't need that so much. Like they're more capable of reading between those lines. They're not worrying about getting it wrong nearly as much as I guess we might. So making sure that I have those two things, like exactly what is it that we want the outcome to be, and when exactly do you need it done, so that I can make sure that I'm doing all the right things.
See, I just went into community. I just went into community because I found that I can, having people come to you and you want to come across, you want to be clear with them, and then also when people are talking to you, you want to take like egos out of it. And that's one thing I do find that I can do is I can be like, okay, this person isn't being malicious at all, but we can try and get over this. So, yeah.
I mean, that's something I find very interesting. Well, difficult, but interesting is because I have ADHD and autism. Trying to separate the two is quite difficult, and often they, they're running over each other and combining in weird ways. So, like, I have these situations where I'm like to my lead, like, blah, 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 here's a ton of stuff. They're like,
He's like, wait a minute, slow down, Brad.
slow down, Brad. 1 second, one thing at a time. So it can be interesting because it's like I've got to apply ADHD strategies to overcome things. But at the same time, those conflict with some of the ways you can manage your communication aspects, and it creates a lot of clashes. But there's always a correct route. It's just a matter of finding that, and especially starting, because I've always done game projects in smaller teams of like 5 to like 7. But especially in a quite large studio such as Gameloft, there is a whole different set of skills you need to learn to work in that environment. And that's been quite a process of going through and saying, okay, maybe not that way, this way, cool, that works, and then building up over time.
I can definitely speak to that as well, because my previous team before Gameloft, so I used to work at Toast PR, a little studio on the Gold Coast, and very small team. So we probably had 6 or 7 people in the office and contractors as well. And I was used to being like, as a kind of a one-man team in my role, I was wearing a lot of different hats and I had a lot of responsibilities on me. But I was used to having a lot of visibility across everything that was happening in the studio, and then coming into a really big team at Gameloft, like relearning how to manage those expectations, relearning how to communicate or avoid over-communicating with people. That's been a big challenge.
Yeah, the over-communication aspect.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is a small little goal we need to do, but how about all these other things?
Yeah.
Which one are you talking about, Brad? Oh, yeah, this one right here. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So, I think there's definitely unique challenges to be aware of, and I definitely think there's something to say for the visual and audio part of it as well. For me, it's definitely not nearly as bad as it is for you, and I think we manage things in similar ways sometimes. But there's a lot of aspects of sort of like regular life, like going to the office and like not being distracted by everyone around you and noises and everything that are challenging. And then I'm hoping that like by starting this kind of conversation, we can normalize the different flexibilities and accommodations that we kind of find useful. So like you'll probably find Brad with his noise cancelling headphones on most of the time. You'll need to get his attention visually if you're trying to talk to him.
I'm guilty of that.
So talking about those kind of challenges and little accommodations of things that we can do here and there that can improve things for us all around.
I think one of the examples that really sort of caught my attention, and I think Liz, you brought it up to me, and that was in an interview. Somebody who has ADHD or a trait of some sort, they may not look at you. So as you're interviewing them, they're looking elsewhere, or looking down, and typically, before knowing that it could be something like this, that you just assume, well, they're not engaged, they're not interested, and you as an interviewer are kind of going, what's going on here? This person's not really into it. And it certainly wouldn't, look good for them in your assessment of, their opportunity for the job. But, after hearing these kind of things, you go, okay, well, wait a minute. You sort of pause and go, maybe we need to learn a little bit more, because there could be something else, You're sort of judging the book by its cover, I guess. But, that's what we do in life. So it's good to know these things, to learn about them, and just sort of have an awareness and go, maybe it's that. I mean, maybe they aren't, it could still be the other case, but at least it gives you pause to go a little deeper and find out.
I think on that awareness note, because personally being diagnosed at 3, that is my whole life. I have no other memories of not. Because it's who you are, it's a defining trait of your personality and everything. So you understand yourself quite well. But of course, externally, many people might not be familiar, might not be aware. And there's also a thing where once because I've had it so long and I've had so many strategies implemented, I can hide it in some ways through trying to communicate. So there's always a thing where people are like, oh, you're actually autistic, are you? And it's building an understanding that these things, there's people out there, basically. And if people know and they have an understanding of that, that can actually help with other people in the future with their processes.
Yeah, a huge example of that is dyslexia. Yeah. So before people knew it was a thing, they just sort of assumed that it was an intelligence issue. And they just don't have the ability to learn how to read. And then you find out actually it's completely, some of the very, very intelligent people, it has nothing to do with intelligence. So you give them more time during exams and things like that, and it's a completely different world for them. So yeah, it's incredible to sort of learn these things.
Something I want to say on challenges, kind of what you were talking about, Brad, about how we put a lot of effort into doing those things, like making eye contact and listening visually, looking at people when you speak to them, all of those things. All of those, they cost us a lot of extra energy to maintain on a day-to-day basis. And something that I was dealing with really, really severely before I got my diagnosis was this massive fatigue all the time. I was tired all the time. And it was really from spending all that energy to maintain my focus on one thing and not be distracted by everything else. I do my best listening when I'm not looking at you, but it's kind of what we have to do day to day. And we learn to do it, and we have to practice it and do it, and it costs us more energy than it would for probably a neurotypical person to do. So we deal with a lot more fatigue on that side, which is where having hybrid work and being allowed to do some work from home, those things are probably one of the most valuable tools for us in managing that, so that we can do our work and not have to worry about the sounds of the office or making small chat with people, all of those things that we can control within our environment as well. And for you, environmental, being able to manage how cold it is in the room and all of those things is really useful to you. So having that flexibility is something that really helps us mitigate that fatigue and burnout as well. Yeah. And
what about too, if you've got, we all have things that take energy. But then there's things that we get energy from. You know what I mean? So we should all be making sure that we're doing things as well that we get energy from to rebuild our batteries from them being depleted.
Absolutely,
from other things. Yeah,
100%.
Which all depends on the individual. Some people.
Yeah. So for some people that might be being a bit extroverted and going out and speaking to humans.
Yep.
For other people that might be playing your video games. For me, I go to the gym 4 times a week. I do. That's really where I get all those really good brain chemicals. And without having my diagnosis and knowing that I'm part of the neurodivergent community, I might not have kind of tweaked to those tools.
Or known how important it is to you.
And knowing how important it is, to rebuild that energy. Yeah.
I just sleep.
Well, this is where our hybrid model really comes in, because I discovered I can't do full remote work from home.
Yeah.
I need someone to annoy, talk to. But I need to be in that social environment, even if I'm not engaging in communication. I just need the discussions I need that creative bubble around me. And the hybrid is great because there are also times that I'm I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to be around you. Do not talk to me. Do not be near me. And I can work from home and talk to my cats, who are terrible.
Do they talk back?
They scream.
They chew her Switch controllers.
they chew my Switch controllers. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool. So then I think we have a participation
Yes.
part of this. What is your biggest challenge within your work?
4 typing, 7 typing,
I think it's
11. Oh my god.
It's a word cloud as well. Focus, yeah. Yeah, focus. I'm expecting this to be very validating.
Yeah. Now that's a big. I wonder. It looks pretty huge. Yes.
Typing on an iPhone. Challenge.
Overcommitting, I get it.
Overcommitting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Masking, definitely.
Oh, I'm a pro at that.
Yeah, and this the other part of this is like Cassie and I have spent our whole lives masking, and it took a long time to unmask.
Yeah.
And last year I wouldn't be up here fiddling with my little clicky thingamabob while I speak to people.
So if people don't know the term masking, basically it means you inherit and internalize your. What's it basically?
I don't know. It's where you put on your human face.
Basically, you pretend to be.
You do
air
all the
quotes
things
normal.
that society
Society
kind of expects
wishes,
of us, yeah.
but in doing that, it gives you a load of stress
Yeah.
because you're letting it all internalize, and you have to let it out at the end of the day, and it drains you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the things that I do might be like this, the fidgeting that I'm doing right now would normally be done in the form of like fiddling with the rings on my fingers. I'm chronic like lip chewer. I'm not really a leg jiggler because that's something I need to mask, and I'll do that with another strategy. Clicking my pen, drinking my water bottle, all of those things are things that I use to mask the fidgeting that my brain wants to do.
Oh, I become a camel. I just drink so much water.
Which is good, right? You want to be hydrated. Yeah.
Fantastic.
This is awesome.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Feeling
2 more typing. What was it?
Yeah.
Oh. I relate to all of these.
I saw no
Yes.
focus / hyperfocus. I'm like, yeah, there is no in between.
Yeah.
There is no in between.
And the other thing is that it's not something that we have any control over.
No.
And that's very frustrating. There's a lot of frustration that we deal with.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and focus from the very beginning was the number
Definitely
one.
a big one.
I'm feeling very validated right now.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah.
It's awesome. All right. So shall we move?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm,
Oh.
I don't wanna
thinking
cut
that we can
people
keep
off
this
'cause
and
they're
I
still
can post them
typing.
online.
Yeah.
at some
Yeah,
point.
we'll post it online later.
But we gotta
We're gonna move on.
keep moving
Keep
forward
moving
here.
going.
All
Cool
right.
that we have like 80 respondents, so that's awesome.
That's amazing.
Cool.
Good
Ken,
job,
thank you so
everyone.
much.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So then let's talk about those were the challenges. Let's talk about the upside. What do we consider to be our greatest assets resulting from your particular neurodivergence?
So again, this comes back to what I was saying before, where your traits aren't inherently negative or positive. It depends on the situation. So hyperfocus myself can be very positive in certain situations, especially when you're focusing like on a design spec and you're really getting in there. You just want to get it done and make it this perfect doc, and that's really good because it allows me to engage a great deal in that. But of course, as we were saying before, like it's certain other aspects, it can be a negative. So it really comes down to what is that inherent trait you've got, and where you're applying it.
The context.
And the context of it, for sure. So definitely for myself, it's hyperfocus, it's ideation, and just being creative. Because there's another thing, because for myself especially, being born, well, definitely I was born with it.
Knowing
but
since you were a child.
Knowing since I was a child. Different one there, Brad, getting close. I've always had sort of an outsized perspective, if that makes sense, to the world. Now, that sounds a bit hyperbole, but it's given me a different way I approach things, which, when it comes to ideation, gives myself a different way of developing ideas. And because of that, those ideas some might be a bit out there, but it allows for creativity to blossom and build. And also from that, given that hyperfocus and that drive, it allows me to develop those ideas into something that can be really creative and engaging. And I think that's what gives me my greatest strengths.
A term that kind of gets thrown around a lot in the neurodivergent community is lateral thinking. And it's interesting that concept kind of comes up when you think about it within our games context, because a lot of the work we do is at this intersection of creativity and very logical work, so when you have someone who's a very good lateral thinker, so thinking outside the box, but also thinking holistically about those things, that really lends to our strengths in that area. So I definitely would kind of consider that a strength that I have. I think if you say we're really good at initiating projects, so if it's like, okay, we need to come up with ideas for this, it's like literally within 2 minutes you'll have 10 different random things, because our brains are so quick at connecting things and we have to kind of slow ourselves down a little bit.
Yeah, often I'm jumping into projects before even started, and it's like, hold off.
Let's take this one. Yeah. So there's lateral thinking. I think for me, on Brad's kind of the way that you talk about our traits being like positive in some settings and negative in other settings, for me, justice sensitivity is a really prominent one. It's led me to, I think it really flows in a bit with kind of the stubbornness and tenacity that I have towards things that I care about. It leads us to have very strong values, and we're likely to stand up for them in ways that other people might not. But it can also lead us to look like we're really stubborn. It can lead us to speak up on things that may not necessarily be within the setting that would that can be negative for us sometimes, like knowing when to hold your tongue on things. Like I can't really do that. No. So yeah, justice sensitivity. I do consider it one of my strengths though. Like I think it's a really a part of me that I really value.
Okay, when you have a brain that goes 5 million miles an hour and you work in marketing and have to come up with social media ideas, you're a goldmine.
And in design too.
Yeah, you are a goldmine. You're going to come up with so many content ideas. It's going to be great. People will have to tell you to stop.
Yeah. Slow down.
Yeah. No, that, and I think with me coming into my diagnosis so later on in life, it makes me have a more empathy and understanding where people are coming from when they talk to me. So doing things like answering reviews or talking to like players of our game when they're cranky about something, I can literally take away the ego because I have not taken it on board. I haven't taken any insults on board. I'm sitting there going, okay, so you don't like it. But I can literally take that on board and translate it to like, say our dev team, our QA team, and be like, hey, this has happened. And rather than showing them the full comment and then getting very butthurt over it. So that I find that a very big strength of mine.
And one thing I want to reinforce with these strengths and weaknesses, the traits that we have, each of us, are dependent on the individual.
Yes.
Because so in the neurodivergent community, there's different diagnoses, of course, but then each of those diagnoses, so one autistic person to the other will not be the same. Everyone is individual in terms of their strengths and weaknesses from this, obviously their situation, their environment, as well as their traits as well. And that means when you apply something for one person, it can be completely different for another one because of just how individuals, pretty much. Everyone's individual, everyone has different ways of approaching things and different ways how they see things.
And certain people mask things to a higher degree than others. Other people have completely different set of traits that are prominent within their life. Like I said, for me, the biggest feature of my ADHD is time blindness, and that's definitely not the case for everyone. Like we talk about things being a spectrum, and it's not really a linear spectrum, it's a circular one. It's one where each of us have, we reach this end of the circle a bit closer than the other one, and there's a whole range of different things that are going on there. And they cross over across different things too. Different diagnoses, yeah.
So I mean, I'm no psychologist, so but for basically the way I try to explain to people is, so like I might have 4 traits that are extreme. That's my autistic diagnosis. But another autistic, so let's say I have sensitivity to light and hearing. While another person with autism might have one, they won't have any problems with sensitivity to sound, but they might have it to food or touch or things like that. And that's just one branch. There's tons of other ones, but that's basically as it is at its basis. And that's what gives it lots of variety.
Everyone has their own unique
I think
little things.
one thing that really helped me was I wound up on ADHD TikTok, and when I was watching
There's a lot
it,
to be said for TikTok.
then I love that they've opened the discussion up, because I'll look through it and go, oh, that sounded like me. And that's when I started my process, because I started relating to them a lot more, and I went, okay, there's something up. But I love that discussion is now more open. It's not taboo anymore. You can talk about it. You can be open about it on your social medias. Like, I have no problem with that being part of my identity anymore.
Yeah. I think it's still challenging. Like, I would never have considered myself, if you asked me a year ago, 18 months ago, that I would be speaking in front of a room full of people that I don't know about my ADHD. Like, that's terrifying. Like, how am I here today? Who knows? But I'm glad that we're here helping continue that conversation and making it more open. The whole point of this was to make it something that we can talk about more, and something that is not like a hidden mystery that we have to reveal about ourselves anymore. Yeah.
We are what we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, participation. What is the audience's neurodivergent upsides?
Interesting. 2, 6, 11.
Empathy. Yeah.
That's really, yes, definitely agree.
So something that I have, kind of a common thread anecdotally that I've heard from a few different people in my life,
Overachieving,
both like professionally and within my personal life, is that I'm very good at bridging gaps in communication with other people, and it's very interesting to see similar things come out of the community as well. In that often in games we have to communicate across disciplines, and I tend to be the person that can take an artist and a designer and help them bridge the gap, or someone who's completely non-technical and help work them through whatever's going on over here. Those kind of things. Like we talk about having issues with like certain aspects of communication, like the social cues, the body language, all of those things. But somehow we seem to be, on the other hand, good at being very empathetic and good at understanding other people's point of view.
I think it comes from the fact that, like, when you're struggling with a certain trait, such as for myself, communication, you're all empathetic to those and have because you build up to learn how you're going to interact. You develop a sense of the difficulties in doing so. I think that's where it comes from myself.
Wearing many hats. I get that
Wearing many
one.
hats.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's almost like it's a easily exploitable part of our part of our identity. In terms of how we're like, I've said it to a few people today, like how we had a little bit of a crisis earlier with this whole system. I work at my best in those very high intensity situations.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
And it's very easy to kind of find that ends up being taken advantage of, and wearing multiple hats and being capable of taking on all of those things. Yeah, definitely wearing multiple hats. And we kind of are like, oh, we're so good at multitasking when actually task switching is like the devil to us.
It's killing us inside. Yeah. We just sit there going, yeah, we can do that. Oh, God, what have I done?
And not knowing when to say no, like
Yeah.
that's a whole other kettle of fish, is accidentally taking on more work than we can handle. And it kind of comes with experience. Yeah.
Definitely. Being funny, I agree with that one.
Self-deprecating humor. Yeah, that's...
Juggle everything is our best idea. This is so cool. I'm really proud to have all of this.
60 participants this time, amazing.
Yeah, well done.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one is collaborating to create accessible workplaces. So what can we do to cultivate accommodating and flexible studios and workspaces that work for everyone? So I think that was something that we talked about, where there was, I don't know if you want to talk about
Yeah, go
your
on.
example
Yeah.
with the
You should tell the story.
blinders.
I'll tell the story. So basically, back, words, Brad. Let's slow down. Whoop, rewind the tape.
Breathe.
Okay, so basically, water time. Hello, everyone.
Well, I can tell the beginning part
No,
of
that's
it.
all good. I'm good.
All right.
He's got it.
Hydration is good. All right, so pretty much, so when it comes back to the topic of sensitivity, I was talking about my visual sensitivity. So during one of the high stress periods at work, I was having a bit of struggle. I was struggling with that a bit. So basically, we currently have table setups at work, and obviously because of COVID reasons, we've got people
Like gaps.
gaps in between. But then, so on the ends, I've got two workmates, lovely people, but from the corner of my vision, I could just see them typing or moving their legs or taking some, drinking some coffee. And because I was trying to focus really heavily, that slight distraction on the side of my eye was causing my sensitivity to peak because it wasn't something I was trying to focus on. But I could see it, my brain was recognizing it, and I was going, hey, look, they're drinking coffee. I'm like, I'm trying to do this work. So at that period, I was like, okay, enough's enough. I need to find a solution. So I decided on the side of my noise-cancelling headphones, another great thing, that's really useful, I threw up some sticky notes. Terrible sticky notes. They instantly fell off, so I put some blue tack on there. And they basically look like blinders. They're just off the side of my head to help prevent myself from seeing that. Looks ridiculous from the outside, but for myself, it was what I needed to move forward my tasks. And that worked really well, but there was a period where I was like, we need to find something that's a bit more, for one, the sticky notes, they fall apart. So we need to find...
Wasn't sustainable.
Wasn't a sustainable solution, no. So we try to find something more permanent. So I approached the studio and I was like, okay, maybe we could work out a solution. So initially what I suggested, put forward was basically some divider blocks. Went through the process, no, maybe that won't work out. So then the studio suggested something, and we're like, maybe that wouldn't fit in. So we went back and forth to find a solution that would work for everyone. And from that, we've found, at the moment, the best option, I've been trialing them and they're really good, is pretty much, I don't know how to explain it. It's for whippersnipping. You can get little, yes, I'll try and explain it. For whippersnipping, you get little blockers for the side of your glasses. People wear glasses.
They're like safety glasses.
Safety glasses the way,
Like
so
attachment.
to stop stuff getting in your eyes. So putting those to the side, and that blocks everything, and it looks pretty professional considering it's made of rubber and stuff, not
Better than your post-it.
but better than post-it notes. And that's now working for me. So it's just find the middle ground and find the best solution for everyone that works, and helping you to move forward in what you need to get done, which is obviously my work, focusing and being the best I can.
Yeah, I think for me, something that's really important to me, and it became important after I've kind of worked out what was causing me to be so fatigued all the time, is definitely like work from home, like hybrid kind of hybrid situation. So we kind of went through the whole COVID period, and I was working from home all the time, and it was a real struggle. Like, it was really, really hard for me. And then coming back into the office, that was a big shock too, like going from being able to work from home a couple of days to working in the office all the time. It's a challenge. So having that middle ground where you can come into the office and like have that different space and the different like creative mindset, speak to people you need to speak to, but also having the ability to be home 1 day a week or 2 days a week, it made massive changes for in my fatigue and burnout levels. So that's like definitely a big flexibility that I value in terms of managing my symptoms. I think and something else that I found, because I don't specifically have I seem to manage well enough without needing anything else specifically in the office, but one thing that I have found useful is sort of just an openness. So like on my team, until we kind of pitched this talk, the only person that knew about my diagnosis was my lead. And when I approached him about it, he was incredible. Like I couldn't speak any more highly of him and how we handled that together. So I now very geekily have like a little PowerPoint that I give to people when I'm trying to explain my diagnosis to people about things that I find challenging in terms of work, things that we can use as solutions in terms of work. So having that kind of open communication with my direct report has been really valuable. So I can kind of unashamedly say, okay, this isn't quite working for me. I need to kind of hear it this way. I need you to be very clear with me. I need a bit of extra validation, and I'm kind of just lucky that we have Westy, who's like, he's kind of the person who I deal with more, and then we have Fish, who's a bit more tough love, and that's a little bit too much for me. So I'm glad that we have Westy as well. But
We love you, Fish.
That openness across everyone, and that's not to say that like Fish wouldn't love me any less, because he knows just fine too. But it's having the openness is what I kind of consider to be an accommodation that everyone should have available.
Yeah, not to block you off, but yeah, working under the anxiety that someone's going to find out who you are.
Yeah,
like
you're not good enough.
Like it adds more stress to something, which is work's already stressful, and that's something where you're trying to focus your best. And if you have that anxiety constantly building, it's like did I do that wrong? Are they going to find out who I am? Like that adds a lot that doesn't need to be there. So with that openness, it allows you to engage, be yourself, and
alleviate it. Yeah.
also allows other people to engage with you the ways they need for you to be your best.
I think, I'm going to echo your sentiments on the whole hybrid model, because that really helped me. And I know that's not sometimes available for everybody, because like I live an hour away from work, and I happily sit on a bus for an hour with a podcast or something in my ears to unwind, because when I work from home, one of my horrible traits is I can't switch off, and I will think about things like I can't switch off. I will constantly be going, I could post this on social media, I can come up with this idea, or oh look, it's 10 p.m. Like stuff like that. But having that open communication as well, I think is great. Yeah, I'm echoing everything Catherine said. You covered everything. But like, yeah, just having that communication and that patience, I think.
Yeah, a bit of patience.
Bit of patience to understand everyone's different. Because there's also, echoing our previous statements on how accessible it is to get diagnosed. Your staff might not know.
Yeah.
Your people around you might not know. They might just, they might have developed good coping mechanisms throughout their life. They might be masking and don't know. Have it like patience, open to discussion, and maybe pop a little bit of education in there.
I think so
Learn
too.
about these traits. Don't go to people and go, I think you have ADHD.
Yeah, it's not gonna
But
work.
if you start recognizing patterns, and you can further accommodate them later on, because everybody is different.
I think it's there's definitely something to be said for underdiagnosis. And part of why I wanted to start this conversation is because a lot of the things that can help us, like very clear communication, like expectations, and being clear about what your goals are and the time frame it needs to be done in, reducing those reading between the lines situations helps everyone, even whether you're neurotypical, whether you know you're neurodivergent, whether you don't know at all. Like a lot of these things can be things that help everyone rather than just like a certain set of few people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you guys started a instant messenger.
Oh,
like we have our
Yes.
internal
Yeah.
instant messenger. You started a group, right?
Yeah, so we, on our Mattermost, it's like Slack basically, we started the Neurospicy channel, and I think, how many people are in it now? But it popped off like
Over
straight away.
20.
Yeah, there's a few, and I think everyone was really happy to have a space where they can talk with each other, where you can say, hey, I'm having a really anxious day, where we can, it really helps create, like instantly, it created a helpful place for us.
Because we're having, sorry.
And some people even joined. I'm sorry. Some people even joined just to be like, I'm neurotypical, but I want to understand everybody a lot more.
Yeah, and huge props to like some of our team have been really cool in that way. Like, and they're like, hey, we don't want to feel like we're barging in on whatever's going on here, but they want to know. They actively want to know how they can communicate with us better and help us out and like know what's going on with us and everything. It's really valuable. It's really nice.
We also had team members who joined it who are neurodivergent. Whoops. And they were sharing their experiences, or they were saying, "Oh, this is a great thing that I found. It helps me a lot.
Yeah.
Helps me a lot." Or, I was going through Ribbons, I was getting a lot of anxiety, but then I found this thing and this course that helps me a lot with this, and like just having that room to have that discussion and then share that knowledge. It's super valuable, and it also creates a sense of I might perceive some things differently, but at the end of the day, we're still humans, and we're still in this community together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I thought was great, like with the blinders and the distraction thing that you were going through was, we could have an open discussion about, okay, well, what could we do here that works for everybody? Because the reason why we don't have, big dividers between every desk is because it, breaks down collaboration, and, if you get them, then what, does everybody else get them, or is it only people that have got ADHD or
it's like wearing a
something?
badge.
It starts getting weird fast. But then we thought, okay, well, what else before we move to that? Is there some other solution that would have less impact on the openness of the studio kind of thing? And I think we're going to do plants. Isn't that it?
Plants is one
Put
option.
some plants on either side of you.
Get some garden
We're going
growing
to try
going on.
that out, and hopefully that works. But we'll find something. But just that it was a back and forth collaboration where we ultimately iterate and try and find something that works for everybody. So
Yeah.
I thought that was very cool. All right, so then next is to the audience. What's your greatest wish for studio accessibility?
I did see the 5-minute hand pop up just before, so
Oh yeah.
type quickly.
Yeah. Why is it not doing the little?
Because it's different. I wanted to give people more
Oh, I see.
characters. I didn't want you guys to be limited to 25.
Is it still taking into account popularity?
No,
Or-
it's just,
I think it's just printing them all.
Yeah, it'll print them for us. But
Well, you can
We are seeing a
rewatch the
trend
video.
here. Like a lot of them
we can
come
see.
down to
nap room. I want a nap room.
I can see a lot of them are coming down to communication and just having that discussion.
Yeah. But also like productivity. I remember Tim said earlier today about how like you kind of plan your studio milestones around the expectation that everyone is going to work at 100% of the time, and it's just not realistic even if you're not neurodivergent. But we have days where we operate 200%, and then we have days where we operate at 50. Like having that, reducing pressure on ourselves to function all
Coffee.
the time that way. Yeah.
Well, and not to take anything away from, you know, the impact that these things can have on neurodivergent people, but a lot of these things would help everybody.
Yes.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's some of them are just a no-brainers. So
Yeah.
heck, we could all benefit from that,
Everyone wants a nap room.
especially as you get older.
Caffeine.
Isn't it noon now?
Yeah, we probably have to
We
move.
will wrap this up fast. All right.
All right.
We'll try
All
and
right.
make these available as available as
Caffeine.
we
Oh,
can.
geez.
Yeah.
Caffeine. Oof.
Yeah.
Diagnosis subject.
More Gameloft t-shirts.
Well, that's what
that was you. I know that it was Stan.
Nice. Awesome. Do we have? What's the last question?
I think it's just
Q&A,
It's
right?
not really. Yeah, it's not really a question.
Okay.
It's
All
more
right.
like, what do we do now?
Oh, we have the future. This is important.
Where to from
Yeah.
here?
So have a near spicy zone. It's cool. Listen and learn from the people around you. And I mean, I know it's scary, but if you feel safe and able to, I highly encourage you to disclose to the people around you, even if it's not your lead. Maybe it's just one person on your team. You never know. Like, because I knew that you had autism when I started at Gameloft, I already felt more welcome.
Oh.
I already knew that things would be fine. You know. So yeah. And there's other really cool GCAP talks this week about similar subjects. One I'm really interested in is the psychological safety one that's coming up soon. Super important for us.
And I mean, a huge thanks to everybody who's come out here and participated in this. I think it's very much a two-way street, which is super cool. Usually it's just, you know, with people up here presenting, but we've gotten just as much from the audience and maybe more than you've gotten from us. So very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic.
I think
All right.
it's Q&A time.
Just Q&A time.
Do we have any time for Q&A? Lunchtime's now, so if you want to stay and ask us questions,
Oh yeah,
you can.
yeah. There you go. So yeah, if you got to leave, or you want to leave, then you can go. Otherwise, you can stick around and ask questions.
All right. Oh, thank you. Tap it down.
Tap
If you go to the
down.
next one.
Yes.
it's actually-
Oh,
Oh,
we've got questions already.
Oh, these are the
Testing.
questions. So,
If you want to read
Oh my
these
God,
out,
these
and
are
then
so
we'll.
good.
how do you navigate a consistent flow of game dev with good and bad days of productivity that comes with being neurodivergent?
I think open communication with your lead for sure. Be like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm just having an off day. That's really valuable. And being upfront about it. Like if you know that you have like pedals, sometimes you're accelerating at 100%. If you know that that's the case for you, I highly encourage you to not just like push it down. Like just talk about it and be like,
Well, if
"This
you're
is not
having a
gonna
bad
be-
day, there's like a 90% chance you're masking it.
Yeah.
And your lead
It's
is
gonna
not.
cost you.
Your lead does not have a crystal ball. They
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
know.
they can't
You
tell.
just you just gotta
Yeah.
gotta be honest.
Yeah, be open.
Yeah.
Put it on the table.
High
And
cost
with the high cost of masking and playing a normal human, I found I'm always burning out. Many tips, tools on ways to regenerate to prevent burnout. Something physical, maybe? I don't know.
So
Yeah,
I
that's-
found that
yeah,
Depending on the person.
something that was really causing me a lot of extra burnout was the commute between work and the office. I used to live almost an hour away from my office, and reducing that really reduced the amount of burnout that I was experiencing. So consider aspects of your life outside work that you could mitigate, because it's kind of like a balancing act. Like you have to give 100% over here, you have to take a bit from over here. But I also found that as an ADHD, one of the best things that we can do for our brains is exercise. I know that we all hate that word. I don't do cardio.
I love
it's not
that
a
word.
thing. But doing some strength training, finding a sport that you like to do, just getting active, going for a walk, like those things can really help regenerate us a bit.
And this comes back to the
Individuality.
individuality point again. So for myself, I find actually longer trips where basically doing nothing is ready to recharge. You know,
Like
get on the
going for a drive,
go for a drive at night, getting on the train after work, throwing some headphones on, just you know, relaxing, just
Music.
just
that's
music,
something
just
that helps me a lot.
same time though, I do agree with the exercise point that even though the exercise itself tires you out, it regenerates
It
your
gives you really good endorphins and brain chemicals.
yeah, exactly.
Well, it can turn your brain off too sometimes.
Yeah.
You know
Give you
what I mean?
something else
That's
to
if
focus on.
you do enough physical exercise, that's the first thing that goes is your brain.
I think
It finally settles down. You know.
I think that's another thing because when you're I bike ride for my exercise. I really enjoy it. When you're bike riding, you cannot focus on anything else.
You got to be on the road.
You got to be on.
not
Same as
fall off.
driving.
Or are you gonna get run over?
You are physically forced to focus on something else, which is
Yeah.
being sure you're not going to crash into some people. So that's why it allows me to then regenerate from those other things. Because if I'm at home and like my game PC is sitting upstairs, I need to do work on projects. Can I really just sit here and watch TV? No, gotta be upstairs. So it forced myself to be in a position to recharge.
Yeah. I think there's something really to be said for, especially as ADHD, like we are not just hyperactive in terms of like physically, our brains are always going. We have this sort of constant need to be doing something, and that can really hurt us in terms of trying to relax. I used to end up very distressed because I couldn't relax. Like I always felt like I had to be doing something productive, and it was so negative for me at the time. But you need to kind of look for things that force you to switch off. So with your bike riding,
Lego was pretty great.
finding things to focus on is probably why a lot of us gravitate towards games, because we need that that
Serotonin,
flow state,
that
the
dopamine
serotonin,
hit,
dopamine, all
yeah.
the good things that are going on there. But having that flow state where you're not thinking about anything else, like that can come in the form of games. Bike ride, for me, it's powerlifting, where I only think in that moment of what I'm about to do. Creating those situations are really helpful.
Be honest though, playing games it used to help me, but not anymore because now it's my career. So I look at a game like,
it's a double-edged sword,
that
isn't it?
pixel is off one step. That should be better. I don't like those art assets. Yeah.
There was one. There was a question that's gone now, but it was about whether the results of the Slido will be. I guess they'll be in the recording.
Yes.
They'll be in the recording. I'll do what I can to see if I can make them available online afterwards as well. So yeah, we'll try to get that out there for you.
And then this latest question is: any suggestions on how to discuss trying to get a neurodiverse diagnosis with people who don't understand or believe in it?
Yeah, it's it's very challenging.
Ask them why they don't believe in it. I guess.
There's
might
that,
be a
but there's
start.
also something that I've found is that it takes a while to kind of learn the mechanisms, learn the vocabulary to speak with someone about that, and like putting it in terms that they understand is something that is learned. It's not something that you just when you go to the psychiatrist, they kind of just say, yeah, you have it, here's your prescription, see you later. Like, there's no guidebook, there's nothing. So I find that joining a community is something that's definitely valuable, because you'll find there's a lot of people out there who have also experienced that kind of thing from their family members, from their friends. I was very lucky in that my mum didn't really she wasn't really anti it, but I was like, you have ADHD as well, just so you know. And she's like, oh, I don't really need to worry about that. But I think she's kind of becoming more open to it. But I was kind of just lucky that mostly my family have been pretty cool about it. But obviously there are situations where your parents will be like, no, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you.
Well, the other thing too is I think psychologists and psychiatrists are completely different.
Yes.
Right. So a psychiatrist is a doctor.
Yes.
I mean, there are some doctors that are psychologists, but you know what I mean? They have to go through a completely different schooling.
Yes.
And psychiatrists can prescribe drugs, whereas most psychologists can't.
Yeah.
So, rather than, finding the drug a solution, I think psychologists sometimes provide life skills or a different way of trying to work through whatever it is, whatever your challenge is, without the whole drug component. So I don't know. Sometimes
Not to
that
say
helps.
that there's any stigma attached to taking medication. I take medication for ADHD and it's fine, but
Definitely wasn't saying that.
No, I agree, and I'm wanting to make it clear to everyone.
good
But
point.
It's definitely not a silver bullet. It's something that goes hand in hand, and I highly encourage anyone who's going through the diagnostic process, if you can afford it and you have access, find a therapist. It's very useful to get those coping mechanisms, those skills, those different ways of framing things, like cognitive behavioral therapy. It's very useful. But there is an accessibility component there, which is why finding a community can be really valuable. You'll find people who are going through really similar situations to you. You can hear about how they navigated it with their family or friends. and go from there. Yeah.
And if you don't like the psychiatrist that you have been able to find, move. Just find another one. I don't care if you're on a wait list. It's not worth the mental toll on your health.
Yeah.
There's sometimes they won't be the ones that you want, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, learning that, like, getting some professional advice on how you can work through things is really, really important. Yeah. Is anyone truly neurotypical?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what's normal?
Yeah, so there is something to be said for the fact that we don't know everything about this, and we're still learning things about this. Like, not very long ago, ADHD and autism were issues for little boys, and we know that's not the case now. We also know that there's massive comorbidity between ADHD, autism, all these other, the variety of different things. There's a lot of comorbidity, so we still have a lot to learn about this. Whether we can say anyone's truly neurotypical, that's not for me to certainly necessarily put any 2 cents in on, because I know that I'm not. But I think it kind of comes down to how we have to exist and function in the world nowadays. Like, this was not a problem for people whose job it was just to be a farmer in the 1800s. We didn't have these issues back then. But considering our context now, that's why this kind of stuff's coming up. Like, some people are just geared better to exist in society, in capitalism as we have it now, than others. And I think now we're realizing that not everyone's brain is geared that way.
There's more research happening.
Yeah,
way more. And
it's less about who's neurotypical and who's neurodivergent, and it's about how all of our brains have different capacities that we're only just learning about now.
I think that's what I was to say, because everything is in the community and in general, because this is the way it's been, everything's defined by the diagnosis, the medical diagnosis. It's this, you have autism. But really, yes, and that helps explain to people in a way, sort of quicker.
It's that just helps other people rather than you.
Basically, yeah. It doesn't really help yourself in terms of, it helps you process things, but it's still a very, very process. And the label itself changes all the time. So autism, it's been updated 3 times now in terms of diagnosis. Used to be a spectrum of, you had Asperger's syndrome, you had high functioning autism, you had all these different varies, and they've cut all that a couple of years ago, and now it's level 1, level 2, level 3, and that's it. So as the research increases, we've learned more about autism in women and other things like that. The diagnosis changed, and I think it's great to know where you sit and what things can help you, but it also is its own factor.
And yeah, there's definitely something to say on that. Even with ADHD, they tried very hard. The leading minds in this space push pretty hard to have the DSM terminology changed for it, because it's a total misnomer. We don't have a deficit of attention; we have an oversupply of it.
Yep.
And on top of that, the only information that we have about how autism, ADHD, OCD, bipolar, how they exist in a lot of spaces is based on the research we already have. And for a lot of the cases, it's done with children a lot of the time. We have barely any information on how it presents in women. So going off those diagnostic criteria is something you have to kind of take with a grain of salt and think about how it applies to you. So yeah, it's a thing.
It's an evolving process.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Ooh, there's more questions.
Cool. Well, there's 33 questions.
Oh my god. We will be sitting here all day.
I don't know.
Oh my
We're not
God.
going to probably get through all of them.
Yeah, I think that's what they tried to push to name it to. Something like that. Yeah. I would like to eat.
Yeah, I like food.
If you do have a question, you
Just
can come
come
to
and
us.
ask us.
Yeah. I know someone wanted to see our socials again, so if you want to skip to the
Can you go back to the start?
and you can send us messages on there as well. What? Hey. So
Cool.
If you
Well,
wanna-
thanks again, everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Good work, you guys.
Thank you. And thanks, Dylan.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you.